Well, exciting things coming up to the Perceptionists Anonymous podcast with Christy Ann Clark. She's just darling, and I'm super excited to hear what she has to say. So, hello, Miss Christy.
Hi, how we doing?
Really, really good. It's been an amazing day full of inspiration and advice, tips. I've learned so much in so many different areas. So, I'll be interested to see what I dream about tonight.
I don't even want to talk about my dreams right now.
That is so
Else, man.
funny.
I'm working through some shit, that's for sure.
Hey, we all have to, have our own paths to take sometimes. And sometimes those journeys are darker or lighter than others, and, all along our way. So we're so happy to support you. And yeah, we'll let you start your show, my dear.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do my best to condense all of this into a half an hour. Part of me is like, man, I hope I just don't ramble, which is a lot of what I do. I like to pride myself that my show is a lot of me being extremely honest and often very vulnerable and very upfront. My show, Perceptionists Anonymous, I like to call it basically a support group for the charming overthinker, which is me, I guess. So anyone that's been watching my show for any amount of time knows that I cover in the last 6 months. I've transitioned over from covering when it started more like spirituality, metaphysical aspects, and I really enjoyed doing that. Really enjoyed that, like these ancient spiritualities, and I found that so fascinating. But I think it was more so the research aspect of it, which has always been who I am. I've always been a researcher and I've always been a thinker. And what today we're going to talk about is overthinking, but I'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, I transitioned over from doing like more metaphysical things into what I do now, which is like sociology, psychology, and essentially just analyzing the human condition. Like just trying to figure out how to be the best human from inside of a human, I guess, from inside of humanity. And oh my God, my cord, I'm sorry. So so a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is actually a little bit different than what I typically do. So what I naturally do is I will come up with a topic. Like I've covered everything from um, symbolic interactionism, which I found very fascinating. This idea of like how every single thing in our life has become a symbol, and we create a symbol, and that symbol triggers emotion, it triggers ideology, and it triggers anything. So like anything represents anything. So like being the overthinker, being the kind of really fun neurotic that I am, I found that absolutely fascinating. So, and then I've moved into different things considering like personality theory. I've had a relationship coach come on from the UK. I've talked to a lot of really interesting people, and I've even gone as far as to cover like some political philosophies, which isn't exactly like my strong suit. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily the most political person, but I would say that I'm a philosophical person. I'm a philosophical person, and I'm a person that tries desperately to understand things. And when I was preparing to do this show, I was like, all right, so what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And I have probably like 3 or 4 different, almost fully developed topics that I wanted to cover. I started out wanting to cover intellectualizing emotion as a trauma response, and that was heavy. It's heavy, and it's a lot of where we'll go here today as well, because I think naturally that is part of what falls under the umbrella of this like overanalysis or this analysis paralysis thing. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to kind of share my story and share a little bit about what I've been going through. And then hopefully I can give some sort of insight into people, because I know that I'm not alone in being someone that thinks so much and like tries to really understand things. And I mean, if you're a thinker, then it's like we don't necessarily recognize when we slipped from thinking to overthinking mode. And I have some a little bit of insight. I hope that I can bring to the surface here. Anyway, oh yeah, so I wanted to cover intellectualizing emotion as a trauma response, and then I've got like 2 notebooks here, by the way, you guys. So we're thinking like overthinking, I've prepared for this for so long, and I always realize that every one of my shows just goes into intuitive mode. I mean, I have a bunch of different things that I will outline, and I'll pick a topic like anarchist philosophy or libertarianism or any of these things, and then I'll have a set of bullet points, and then it's just me doing my thing. That's just me doing my thing. And then a lot of it I just kind of go into channeling mode, and I'm able to hopefully just say things that are relevant to other people and relevant to people that may be struggling in certain areas that I've struggled in, or just interested in the same stuff. Because essentially that's what I do. Just whatever I'm interested in, I'm here for. So intellectualizing emotion, I wanted to talk about how to fully integrate yourself as a spirit in addition to being the best version of yourself for society. And that's actually a course that I'm putting together. Something that I'm going to be offering here in the next couple of weeks is an online course I've put together called SSRI, your new favorite antidepressant. And it is social spirit reintegration. And so with my experience in the psychology field and my experience in the spirituality field, and I have almost 20 years of experience in tarot reading and palm reading and meditation, and recently I've gotten into the certification of spirituality mode, to where I can help people sort of take who they are, take who they think they are, take who they want to be, and then take like something that's deeper, something that's much deeper into in who they are, and then how they can really use that to braid it all together and just become the best fully functioning spirit that they can, and to like integrate these different parts of themselves that they may feel like, you know, maybe sort of obviously separated or like kind of characteristic to different parts of their lives. Anyway, so I'll talk about that a little bit later, but you guys, you really do have something to look forward to with that. I'm so excited. This will be my first online course. And anyone that listens to this, you guys go ahead and reach out to me, and I will go ahead and give you free access to my course as soon as it's out. So anyway, so as I'm preparing for this show, I'm like, I had all these different things that I wanted to think, I wanted to talk about. And I kept going back to the idea of over-intellectualization, overthinking. And as I'm like coming up to people close to me, kind of even strangers, like my salon lady, or like the lady at the coffee shop, or, you know, I'm a server, so I have access to thousands of people. I talk to thousands of people every month, I feel like. And it's, you know, it's such a blessing. So I think that with that being said as well, I have a really good access to kind of understand people and to analyze people, and, you know, I just really love people. And I know maybe it comes off like, or maybe from the inside, it's like sort of being like planted here, like an alien planted in society, to understand society and to help society understand itself through just me, through me. So anyway, so as I'm talking to people, I'm like, all right, so should I cover this? Should I cover this? And I had the distinct pleasure of having multiple people say, you know, I think you're overthinking it. I think you're just thinking a little too hard on it. And I was like, oh my God, why does this keep happening? Like, what does that even mean? What does that even mean? What does it mean to overthink something? At what point do you transition from thinking into overthinking? And like, I can't say that I've ever experienced this sort of like toll booth in my head that says like, okay, I've done it again. Like, all right, we've gone from just being cool to like, now we need to chill the hell out and just let people be people. You know, like not everything needs a meaning. Not everything needs to be understood. And some things, I mean, we don't have to break everything down into detailed chunks. Like, and a lot of what I do on my show is I'm speaking to myself as I'm talking out loud. And that's a lot of how I do my channeling, is as I'm speaking, I sort of feel like I slip into a flow. And then hopefully there's other people that are receiving benefit from what I'm talking about as well. Because I know I'm not alone. And I know that when you are a thinker and you're an analyzer and you're a worrier and you're a dweller and you're a ruminator, like it kills us. It's really like, I'm preparing for this. And like I said, once I get 2 notebooks, guys. So I'm like back and forth. We'll see if I even use them. I'm using them a little bit. So bless my heart. When you're a thinker and a ruminator, it's, you know, it started out as a defense mechanism. And we all know that there's a lot of different ways we think of the like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn circumstances, you know, or survival techniques or trauma responses or anything. And so what a lot of us do is that we can separate from our emotions in favor of trying to understand people, and trying to break everything down into some sort of like analysis. Like if I won't have to really get hurt if I constantly think about what I'm doing, right? Like I won't have to hurt other people if I'm constantly thinking about what I'm doing, or if I'm constantly analyzing, or if I'm like, you know, I've observed them and they've done this, so like that should be socially acceptable. And you know, and this is definitely, I mean, maybe being a woman that is recently diagnosed as neurodivergent, and you guys, that has changed my life. I'm like, Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Like I'm sure that not everybody has analyzed people to the extent that I have my whole life, but once again, I think it's been a survival tool, doing my best to watch people, see how they interact, see what's most common, and then just do my best just to understand them so that I can better understand myself. And I realized that as a coach, they say, all right, so you can only really coach on things that you have experienced. You can only really coach on things you know a lot about because you've been there. Like, what were you struggling with 6 months ago? What were you struggling with 3 years ago? And it's like a lot of my life has always been lived in my head, and to the point where I can draw myself into so many different potential scenarios, so many different potential situations. And then some of them may be happening, some of them might not be, some of them may happen in the future. And what's really hard for overthinkers and for intuitives as well is that we're intuitive. A lot of the time we're right. And that's what's hard, is you can be right so many times and then you can be wrong about something, or you can have overanalyzed something to the point where you've broken something down so far that it's not even what it was anymore. Like someone's tone of voice because they were thinking about their dead mother the other day, and it's like, and you just know that you were talking to them and you told them that that you wanted to make plans with them or something, and they just came off really weird, or like everything's weird. It's like, I have found that, like I'm talking about the toll booth in my head earlier. It's like, at what point do we slip from thinking into overthinking? And I've realized, and it's taken me a while to figure this out, because all I can do is think about it. Like all I can do is analyze my behavior, and all I can do is analyze, like, at what point do I begin suffering the details, more or less, or like swim through the details. And I find that my overthinking is occurring when I'm trying to figure something out. And that's a lot of what it comes down to, is trying to figure something out. Like, what are we trying to figure out? Like, what is the meaning of what they said? And it's like, I just keep going back to the idea of like self-preservation. We're trying really hard to make sure that, that we are not going to be hurt in a situation. We're trying really hard to make sure that everything that we've prepared for is going to be appreciated, or that we're not going to say something stupid. And like, even with this, like, I really love my ability to put out these podcasts, because I'm able to just kind of talk myself into revelations. And I hope that, once again, people, like, it's a benefit to other people too, because I know I'm not alone, man. I know that a lot of what I experience is just us trying to make sure that we are okay. So, like I said, so when I was preparing for this show, I'm like literally Googling, like, what is overthinking? What does that mean? Like, to what extent, when do we switch into the overthinking mode? What are there any philosophies about it? Like, once again, like, being the philosopher that I am, I'm Googling YouTube videos, and I came across a couple interesting TED Talks and an interesting discussion from Alan Watts. And so Alan Watts says that, when you, like, he literally has a whole segment, and I'll go ahead and post this on my podcast as well, where you guys can find it. I'll post it on my website, perceptionistanonymous.com. And I just found so much value in what he had to say. And he says that essentially overthinking is when you get to the point that you are thinking about thoughts, and that's all you're doing. And this TED Talk, this guy says, so there's a difference between perception and reality, and that there is this gap that resides between, that everything in between that is thought. So at what point are we just slipping into overthinking mode, and we are losing our sense of self? Sorry, my computer died. Losing our sense of self, and losing our sense of mindfulness and presentness, which in reality, that's the solution. And I've come up with like 3 different tips that I really want to help you guys, or that I really want to bring up to, help myself as well as help you guys in terms of getting out of the details. Like, we don't have to live our lives in these details. And I'm realizing that a lot of what I'm saying here is kind of just, it could just be just me rambling. It could just be me, talking myself through my own personal stuff, which is a lot of what my show is. It's a very vulnerable, very authentic self-therapy session, but I cover some cool stuff too. Like, I think, like, my favorite episode of covered postmodernism, which I just found absolutely fascinating. And I covered neo-Marxism. I had my girlfriend Courtney Dupuis come on, who's an author and an editor and a teacher and a I guess she works for a college, teaches at a college, and so we're bouncing these ideas back and forth of like neo-Marxism, and so I love details and I love analyzing things and I love researching things. In my personal life, I've realized that it doesn't do much benefit, and I can say that I don't think that it would do a lot of benefit for you guys as well. Maybe some people have never had the issue of overthinking. Maybe some people have never had, like, they've never been that big of a worrier. They've been more present in their life. They've never had to deal with all of these details, and those people, like, that's amazing. Bless your heart. I'm so grateful that everyone doesn't have to deal with this the way that I have. But once again, if you're going to coach anything, you got to coach from what you know. And I know thoughts, man. I know thinking. And so I know. So I guess the reason I'm covering this is because I know that where we are in the state of society right now, and then I know the girls ahead of me were talking about Saturn return, and I am like in my Saturn return as well, like enough to where I'm writing like a small book about my experience with it. And this is a lot of what I am confronting in my Saturn return. This is the idea of, like, when do you move into a more fulfilling life, and what does fulfillment mean, and how can you achieve fulfillment, and can you do that in your head, or can you do that from your heart? And I think that it's really in a lot of the spiritual realm and a lot of the increasingly popular sense of personal development that we're seeing in the world right now is that sorry, I lost my train of thought. So we have to shift from a brain-centered reality into a heart-centered reality, and that can be so much easier said than done. And so as I'm preparing for this show and I'm looking into my own experience and I'm reaching out to people, like I'm reaching out to my father, and my father actually had a really strong impact on what I'm going to talk about today. So like I said, by the end of this, I hopefully have some tips for you guys to get out of your head and to get back into your body and to get back into your life and just live your life the most fulfilling way that you can. There's this band. Oh my God, my cat. She's like, I want in. Every time I hear her record, like I'm here and she's like here for it, man. So she's like my little co-host. So this is little mama. Anyway, she's going to probably mess me up right now. So there's this band, and I say, God, I can never remember it until I'm listening to it. And they say, get your head out of the clouds and get your feet back in the dirt. And I think that is one of the most prominent and most prevalent ways of being able to step out of our head, because it's killing us. Overthinking is the killer of inspiration. It is the killer of flow, and the other way around. Flow and intuition are the answers to overthinking, to be in a flow state and to be present. And I think I really try and step away from things that are like really cliche, like I understand that there are sayings for a reason. There's cliches for a reason, like, oh, it is what it is, or everything happens for a reason, or, like, I think you're thinking too much, or maybe that's just been my experience, I guess. Maybe not everyone has people tell them that. But flow, to be in a flow state and to be as present as you can in your life truly is the answer. And so my first step to helping overthinkers or helping people that really just get overcome with analysis paralysis is, figure out what your toll booth is, figure out what your giveaway is. Like I said, for myself, I find that once I've been like, I will literally, like, it's probably like an OCD trait that if something happens that I have mixed feelings about, or I'm trying to figure out whether I was supposed to be upset with it or not, or figure out how I feel about it. Because once again, I've intellectualized my emotions, and that's something that, we'll talk about in a later episode. Like, I'm going to have to confront that on a whole different vibration than the flow I got going on right now, because this is different. But figure out what your toll booth is, and figure out at what point are you like maybe obsessing over something, or maybe just worrying about something, or when you are just like, what is your recognition of when you've slipped into overthinking, and what does overthinking mean to you? To me, it is just swimming through the details and me trying to pick out meaning from something, and to make sure that I shouldn't be upset about something, or to make sure that I should be upset about something, or to make sure that I said the right thing or I did the right thing. And this podcast and also serving tables, what I do for my career, has really changed my life to go from being, it allows me to, like, I have to be in the flow. I have to allow things to work out. I have to pick my battles, and we have to pick our battles in life. So figure out what your toll booth is, figure out what it is that, that triggers you into this overthinking mode, or this like analysis mode. And then my second notion would be, if you're overthinking about like an interaction with someone, maybe your partner or someone at work, or one of your clients or anything like that, and I find that I will replay what they've said in my head over and over. I'll replay it to try and figure it out. I'll try and be like, okay, so what does that mean? What did they mean by this? But is that consistent with what they've done before? And like, mind you, this is probably all like neurodivergent issues. So like, shout out to all my empaths that are just trying to make it through the day, So yeah, so if you find yourself ruminating on a situation, on like some sort of interaction you've had with another person, this is just like my primary example that I want to give, because it's something that I've done so much of. Primarily my issue, or my worries, are around my relationships with other people. I really want to make sure that I'm a good partner. I really want to make sure I'm a good friend. And I try so hard to think through everything. I try and plan everything out, or I try and like, prepare what I have to say. And, it's like, once again, it's like the opposite of flow. It's the opposite of being in the moment. And it's not saying I do this like to that deep of an extent all the time, but I really I try and say things that are, kind, or I try and just be careful what I say. I really don't want to be misconstrued, and I really don't want to be misunderstood. And that is one of my biggest worries, is that I'm going to be misunderstood, or that I'm misunderstanding someone else, and that I am acting upon a misunderstanding. And so that's where I start getting into the details. And so what I want to say is, if you are dealing with that I would recommend literally pulling in your energy. And maybe this is me coming from the spiritual community or the energy working community, because I literally do energy work, and I physically feel energy. I am claircognizant, and I'm clairsentient. And so I can physically feel when I'm like losing my energy. And that's what I think overthinking is. It's like this hole in our brain where our life force just drains out of. So literally call yourself back. And if that takes guided imagery, or if that takes like journaling, or if that takes literally just stop thinking about it. Just stop thinking about it. Like, I listen to really loud music and I go on drives, and that's been really beneficial to my well-being. And I actually really like, I've picked jobs that are a little bit further from my house than maybe they need to be, because I like, and I need that decompression time. I need that time to listen to music, and I need that time to just get out of my head. So whatever that means to you, go hiking, take a bath, watch a movie, just whatever it is, like, call your energy back and stop worrying and stop thinking about what they're doing in general. Like, any relationship or any issue I've had in my relationships, I find myself ruminating over what they said or what they did or they didn't say or didn't do. And I'm just almost completely focused on them. I'm focused on what they did, what they said, what they're thinking, what their motives are, instead of myself. And it's like, if you can't stop thinking about a situation, like if you're that deep into this, this analysis mode, then at least only think about yourself. Only because that's all we can have control over. And that's the only thing that we're ever really going to understand, is that we're only going to be able to understand ourselves. And you have to just think about yourself. What did I say to that person? What did I mean when I said that to that person? Where was I going with that? What were my intentions? Were my intentions pure? Like, was I trying to piss them off, or was I trying to passive aggressively trying to get them to show me that they care about me more? Like, I've got my own shit. I've got some shit I'm working through, and that's why I'm here, guys. So I'm here, and I like to be a voice for the people that are going through the same thing I am. So anyway, figure out what your toll booth is, and then figure out how you can pull your energy back and strictly focus on yourself. My other thing is, my mantras become zoom out, Christy. Zoom out. You are too deep into the details now, man. Like, you're in the details. Like, stop it. Zoom out. And I find that has been I don't have a lot of mantras because I, once again, think they're kind of cliche, but the idea of zoom out has been life changing. And then I know I'm running out of time. Wow, I didn't. Cool. I guess I planned this okay. I did okay for my planning. But my last thing would be, when I was talking to my father and I was asking him what to do, I said, I need help. I really need help getting out of my head. I need help. My mental health is suffering. My emotional health is suffering. And this was only like last week. And my father is very Christian. And I am my background is in witchcraft, and it's been in like energy work. And so different stuff, and it's kind of progressed into like Gnosticism and whatever. So, but he's like, okay, the only thing that saved my life is giving my life over to God. And I'm like, I can't, that doesn't necessarily resonate with me so much. And so I came up with an acronym for God, which is, as I say it out loud, it's kind of cocky, but I refer to it as choosing goodness over disillusionment. Goodness over disillusionment. Literally, if someone has done something and you're trying to figure out whether or not you should be upset about it, maybe just give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe just choose goodness over disillusionment. Choose goodness. Choose the greater good. Like if you have an option between thinking that someone said something to hurt you, or thinking that someone said something kind of offhandedly and maybe they didn't realize, then it, sometimes it doesn't hurt to just choose the one that gives you inner peace more, even if they meant something shitty, even if they meant to harm you, or even if they did do something that they know hurt you, or that if you've been hurt by someone, you have the option of being able to choose goodness over making sure that that they hurt you. Some of these things can be so little, and we don't need to keep track of everything, because it's killing us. We don't need to keep track of all the details, and we don't need to stay so focused on our self-preservation. We're always going to be okay, for the most part, I guess, like as long as we don't think ourselves into mental illness or think ourselves into completely losing and giving away our power, because we have the power to be present, and we have the power to overlook these things that don't really matter. And a lot of things don't matter in the grander scheme of things. It's all a ride. The last thing that I could say to you guys is check out Bill Hicks's stand-up comedy segment that's called It's Just a Ride. And I actually got a tattoo of it right here to remind myself to just be present, and that honestly we live in a matrix, and that none of this is real anyway. And we are just passing through, and these are just momentary instances of being human, and none of it has to be that heavy. None of it has to matter that much. And once again, use your better judgment, pick your battles. But for those of us that are overthinkers, and for those of us that can get stuck, it's okay to look past the details. It's okay to look past those things, and it's okay to zoom out, and it's okay to choose goodness over disillusionment. It's truly like, it's okay. Anyway, you guys, so I'm so grateful to have been here today. And actually I talked about things that I didn't necessarily think I was going to talk about. And I hope that you guys have found some sort of benefit from my experience, and benefit from what it is that I have to offer to society, which is a lot of just me thinking about thoughts, thinking about thoughts and thinking about perception. And you can find me at perceptionistanonymous.com. Just put up my website. I'm so excited, you guys. I pulled my website out really fast. I'm working on this course, social spirit reintegration. Please reach out. Please, if you guys are interested in collaboration, you can find me. You can email me at christyann@perceptionistanonymous.com. You can find me at Instagram at perceptionistanonymous, or sailor.awen. SAILOR.AWEN. Awen is the Druidic symbol for inspiration. And so that's I like it. Kind of a play on words on Sailor Moon. But anyway, you guys, thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
Chrissy, I had such a wonderful time listening to you, and you probably got a little interrupted by that message I sent you in the middle of that. So if you got that was me. Sorry about that, fan.
That's hilarious. No, I was like, hell yeah, I'll talk about that later though.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I can't wait to connect with you. And just, you're right up my alley, girl. So I'm excited to connect with you. Great value, wonderful reminders. Oh man, I'm excited to follow your journey